Thank you very much for coming here and listening to our urgent message at this time of humanitarian emergency. As never before, those of us who formed the Gaza Tribunal by this fashion will be too late. Too late to save the people, to save the surviving people who have already been traumatized by more than 22 months of genocide. The world has been disoriented. The eyes and the ears of the world have been exposed as never before, including the Holocaust, to the transparency of genocide carried out in real time. It challenges our humanity to act at this point. And it is of great sadness that there has been such a complicit behavior on the part of the liberal democracies of the West. And we notice that there are changes underway. Gradually, the people of the West are reacting. Again, they have to react with a sense of urgency or it will be too late. And we're at that in historical time when the challenge is at its climax. And we hope we can at least alert the world to this situation of ultimate emergency for innocent people and for the whole dignity of humanity. The Gaza crisis has not been described as the moral crisis of our time idly. It has engaged people everywhere, and it's only now beginning to engage some governments, particularly of the global South. We are trying to address the conscience of all people and encourage the kind of activism that will produce changes in government behavior, particularly an arms embargo and various forms of sanctions, both public and civil society initiated, including the kind of solidarity with the Palestinian struggle for basic rights, including the right of self-determination, that proved to be so unexpectedly effective in the context of the anti-apartheid campaign some 30 years earlier. It is against this background that the Gaza Tribunal has issued an emergency statement that is aimed at being responsive to this unique historical moral challenge in quest of justice. Law has failed because it hasn't been enforced. We speak on behalf of people and civil society. We will meet at the end of October here in Istanbul and feature a jury of conscience that will make a final set of verdicts and strong judgments. And it's our hope that this kind of civil society uprising reflects both a growing mood of dissatisfaction with what governments and international institutions are doing. And one further point is the sensitivity to this changing environment that has been expressed by the sanctioning of the UN Special Rapporteur on occupied Palestine, who was one of the leading tellers of truth, the messenger of truth to the world. A sanctioning by the US government that punished the truth teller and rewards those who have been disseminating lies about the realities of Gaza. This is reinforced by the August 10th assassination of Assas al-Shafir and his Al Jazeera colleagues in another violent, deliberate effort to silence truth tellers and to confound or confuse the world with falsehoods. So part of the Gaza Tribunal is to strengthen the role of truthful conceptions of reality. And that is of strategic importance to the well-being of the world, not only for Gaza, but for climate change and other issues before the world. Let me just introduce this emergency statement, which is our response to this historical moment. And I will, I think the statement's available to everyone here, but I will just read a couple of the paragraphs introducing it. Basically, the statement calls for the empowerment of the General Assembly of the UN to evade the veto in the Security Council and the slowness with which International Court of Justice operates, and its technical limitations to law, where, as I've tried to suggest, the real preoccupation at this point is with justice, which is a broader conception of doing the right thing. As was already suggested, and I'm now quoting from the statement, on August 7th, the National Security Cabinet of the Netanyahu government approved a decision opposed by Israel's own military high command to engage in a further Israel most lethal phase of genocide, involving the conquest of those portions of Gaza City where close to 1 million starving Palestinians are sheltered in fear and foreboding. Additionally, Israel's Prime Minister went beyond the decision by announcing extensions of the escalation to include central Gaza. The imminent escalation deeply challenges member governments of the UN, as well as the United Nations as an organization, and other multilateral institutions to take drastic action now. The drastic action that we propose involves a combination of relying on existing policy instruments within the reach of the UN at the present time, and it relies specifically on the notion of the Uniting for Peace resolution, which was enacted back in 1950, the time of the Korean War, and successfully invoked during the Suez crisis of 1956 to keep the UN responsible and effective despite the veto in the veto feared to be cast by the Soviet Union during the Cold War era. Subsequent to the Cold War, in the context of the genocide that affected Bosnia, the UN adopted the so-called responsibility to protect, or R2P, which was adopted by the UN 2005 summit, and specifically was designed to meet the kind of humanitarian and political crises of the sort that have been allowed to unfold over this period in Gaza. We are hopeful of participating in the upcoming General Assembly meetings in New York in September to bring this into the agenda of the UN in this spirit of emergency. We hope to have laid the groundwork for doing that by the action of releasing this statement today.